before we start on the presentation itself, I thought it might be nice to look at perhaps some of the big questions that philosophers have looked at through the years. And maybe we'll take a few minutes to explore the biggest question of all, the ultimate question of life. Get in your mind and be ready to write it down. Now, my number is 58. Okay? Take your pen and paper, please. Write down my number. Write down your number and add them together. And you're going to get a 3-digit number. Okay? So my number is 58. Write down your 2-digit number and you get a 3-digit number. Give me a nod of your head if this is working. Rock and roll. Good. So we're going to do some complex mathematics. Okay? Although I'm looking at the time. No, let's do a simple version. So here's what I want you to do. Wipe out my number. Wipe out the first digit there. Okay? And then I want you to subtract that number from this number. And you'll get another one. So subtract these 2 digits from those. Don't let anybody see your response. Okay? Keep it to yourself. This is school. This is this sort of thing. Okay. Now, as I look around the room, and there are maybe 300 people here, I'm just wondering, have you ever had similar experiences? Now, if you can just grab up your telephone, okay? So grab your telephone, and let me see if I can get this working. See up here, and in the browser, go to polev.com/DeiricM, and those are zeros at the end, okay? So just log on to that. It won't capture your name. When it says name, just skip. And just tell me, have you ever had these experiences? And you can nod your head if you can't get through to it. Have you ever had the answer to a problem, but you felt afraid to say anything? Yeah. Or found yourself in hot waters, found yourself in difficulty for challenging the way we do things. Or be negatively stereotyped. Or had your input unfairly dismissed or ridiculed. So just, you can select any or all of these. And let me tell you what happens. I do this survey on a regular basis. Right around the world, even in the best organizations, the majority of people have had the majority of these experiences. Some more than others. The one on the top is a classic. You can see it. So these are experiences that we have on a regular basis. Sometimes at work. Just key in the first 3 words that come into your mind. How did it make you feel to have those experiences? Nicoletta, that's a name, right? It's definitely working, Nicoletta. Unhappy, rejected, frustrated, angry, anxious. Now, the last 2 years in this world, there's been enough anxiety in the world, you don't have to go to work to get it, right? I can get it just by switching on the radio or the TV. These are the words that we all hope are not used when people say, that's the impact we have upon them. These are the words that people use when they feel a lack of psychological safety. Now, the lady who is the doyenne, the boss lady in the research of this area is a lady called Amy Edmondson. And she says there are 4 interpersonal risks that we worry about. Every day. We're worried that if we ask a question, we might be viewed as ignorant, right? If we make a mistake, we might be seen as incompetent. If we question the way things are done, we might be seen as troublesome. And if we ask for feedback, it could be considered intrusive. And I heard her being interviewed recently, and she said, beautiful expression. She said, and nobody wants to be the skunk at the picnic. Nobody wants to stink. Nobody wants to stand out by taking one of these interpersonal risks unless they feel completely safe to do so. That's psychological safety. The way she defines it in formal terms in her book, which is really excellent, she says it's a belief that it's safe to take these risks. It's a sense of confidence that you won't end up being rejected or punished by the team leader or a member of the team. It's an environment where people feel comfortable. Here's a classic one. Being themselves. You don't want to walk into a room and have to behave like you're somebody else. And this guy, Timothy Clark, he nails it. For me, that's one sentence, psychological safety. Now, when I talk to my clients all around the world, they tell me there are 4 things we care about right now. Okay? Employee well-being, psychological safety, emotional intelligence, and team collaboration. This is one of the hottest topics for everybody in the world right now. And if it's not a hot topic for you, well, it should be. Because it goes to the core of what makes people safe or feel safe, bringing the best version of themselves into the office every single day. The sense that you can be yourself without social, political, or personal cost. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that your office has to be all group hugs and let's sing Kumbaya. Okay? So it's not about everybody being a nice guy. You can have a company full of jerks and it can still be psychologically safe. It's not just about being it's not about, even if somebody has a crap idea, good for you. That was a super idea. Give me a hug. Okay? It's not about accepting all ideas just so everybody's happy. And it's not about eliminating conflict. In the clients where we raise psychological safety, there's more conflict than there was before we raised it. But there's not conflict between people. There's conflict between ideas. There's not social conflict. I'm not talking to you anymore. There's conflict between, I think there's a better way of doing this. Here's the way I think we could do it. No, we should be doing it this way. There's more conflict. And it's safe to have that conflict. That is the essence of psychological safety. Now, I want to put this in some context for where every single one of you who have responsibility for the people part of your business, where you are right now. So I want you to think of someone who makes you feel psychologically safe. Now, I don't do this lightly. Seriously, really bring into your mind somebody really like it to be work. I'm not going to ask you for a name. I'd ideally like it to be work, but it can be personal as well if you like. But somebody where when you walk into the room, you don't have to think, can I say that word? Okay, yeah, I can say. And you know what I'm talking about because you know those rooms where you walk in and it's not safe. And so you're watching every word that you say. So I want you to think and bring that person to mind and pick up your telephone again and tell me, how does that person specifically make you feel? If you were going to walk into a room to spend a day with them right now, how do you feel about that? So just write down a few words. Seen. Holy God. I said it was anonymous, but please, because it's the first one, who put that in? Do you mind? Seen. Absolutely. Fundamentally, the one thing that we want more than anything else in the world is to be seen. And to be seen as ourselves, accepted, appreciated, valued, confident, powerful, accepted. All of those words. And look at that. Now, we're talking about business here today. But if somebody asked your children how they feel around you, or your friends, these are the words you want them to be using, right? These are the way you want the people that interact with you to be feeling. Accepted, confident, valued, respected, appreciated. Myself. Holy God, myself. Who said myself? Yeah, a couple of people said myself. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Where's Dan Gita? Is he in the room? No. Well, then I'll address myself to Puyu. We're going to go to the dark side. Okay, you can tell Dan I put that in especially for him. So let's go to the dark side. And what I want you to think of is somebody who makes you feel psychologically unsafe. And by the way, my apologies. Because in the moment you brought them to mind, you felt it, didn't you? Yeah. You know, that sort of emptiness, that sort of hair standing on the back of your neck. Now tell me, what words come into your mind about how that person makes you feel? So give me a few examples. Insecure, unsecured. Anxious again. And the problem with this, when you put two words in, they separate them, so I know there was something that came before safety. Scared. Now, I was talking to a gentleman this morning. It was Gabrielle. And I'm not going to try and say your last name, Gabrielle, because I'm Irish. and there are too many vowels. So, and we were talking about the work he does. And I said to him, the exact opposite of psychological safety is fear. And so, scared, anxious, afraid, uncomfortable, fearful, those are the opposites. There's nothing in between. You either feel psychologically safe or you feel scared. And scared can be the scared you get when a wild tiger walks up to you in the middle of Brasov. That's pretty scary. Okay? Or it can be the scared that you get when you walk into a room with somebody who's a smart ass and who always just has to take that little bite out of you. But it's fear nonetheless. It's triggering the same areas as you'll hear in some of the presentations later on. Okay, why is this important? You've probably seen as many nature programs as I have. And in a lot of them, you see a scene like this. All of the water buffalo, they're standing up on the edge of a river. And they've eaten everything green for miles around them. You can see there's nothing left. And they're hungry. And they're looking across the river, and man, it's like a buffet. It's just green. And they all stand there like that, looking across the river. And nobody moves. And the camera can stay on them for 30 minutes, for 40 minutes, and nobody moves. And then one of them takes off because she feels safe enough. She takes off. What happens next? Yeah, they all take off, right? One of them, oh, must be okay. And suddenly, they're all on the other side munching that stuff. Charles Darwin spoke about this in the 1800s, about emotional contagion. He said that emotions spread from person to person as quick or even quicker than a virus. So, if you've got somebody in your organization who's feeling any of these ways right now, it's not just a problem for them. It's a problem for everybody. Because when they feel anxious and scared and fearful and superficial and all of those things, everybody catches it to a greater or lesser extent. When mom and dad comes in the evening, if dad has a face on him like a dog chewing a wasp, what happens to the atmosphere? It falls to the ground because of emotional contagion. You can feel it. In fact, what the research now tells us is that we do it absolutely normally and naturally. You know how we catch emotions? We don't even realize we're doing it. We're mimicking. All the time we're mimicking the facial expressions of people. We're mimicking their body language. We're mimicking their tone because in pre-verbal times, that allowed us to feel what they feel. So there's a big difference between the way you feel. You've probably seen the lady on YouTube, Amy, somebody help me out. Doesn't matter. But she talks about the power pose. And she says, stand like that. If you're feeling nervous, stand like that. Okay? And then if you change your body language over to that, you feel very different to the way you feel in that way. So if you're copying the body language, the facial expressions, the tone, the approach of the people around you, you then become them emotion. You start to experience their emotion. And we don't even notice. We don't even know why it happens. Let me ask you a question. Do you know anybody who, when they walk in the room, they suck the oxygen and the energy out of the room and the temperature drops 10 degrees? I won't ask you for names. Yeah, absolutely. You know something like that? Do you know anybody who, when they walk in the room, it warms up? It becomes a nicer place to be, and you just feel, it's okay. You know somebody like that? Emotional contagion. We catch the emotions of other people. And you know what we also catch? We catch the emotions we have become accustomed to catching from people. So if somebody shows up making you feel anxious, you'll feel anxious even before they make you feel anxious. Just because they open the door, and your heart, and of course, fight or flight. You know what fight or flight is. When it gets triggered, you want to run away or you want to fight. And neither of those is socially acceptable when the boss walks in the room. You know, beating the living lard out of the person or running out of the room is not acceptable. So what do? We swallow it down and we become anxious. So we don't even notice what's going on. And that's why it's so critically important that absolutely everybody understands that emotional intelligence makes this not the boss's job, it makes it your job, and your job, and your job, and your job. Now, the boss, the head of the department, the head of the organization, the head of HR, Desiree, they have a responsibility for creating an environment where it's possible for people to feel psychologically safe. But if the only person who's doing that is the person at the top, it doesn't work. Every person has the responsibility to bring psychological safety into the workplace by the way they show up. And it's not just their responsibility, it's also their opportunity, because when we show up in a way that makes others feel like psychologically safe, they feel good and we feel good. Let me try something. Now, I had a stupid looking face on me. And 10 seconds later, about 3/4 of you had a stupid looking face on you, right? You had a silly grin. You didn't know why you were grinning. It's emotional contagion. You caught it. And when you caught that, you got a little dart of serotonin into your brain. And you get that little dart of serotonin from chocolate and sex and vigorous exercise. Not necessarily in that order. But it makes you feel good. So when I smile, you smile. When you smile and you feel good, you smile more. And so I smile back. And before we know where we are, it's a grin-a-ton. And everybody's smiling. Every emotion works the same. It's everybody's opportunity. It's everybody's responsibility. Psychological safety is quite simply what you experience when you're confident that those around you will allow you to ask silly questions. Now, we all say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And then we laugh down our sleeves when somebody asks one, right? We say, yeah, go ahead, ask that question. There's no such thing as a silly question. And they ask it and say, oh, Jesus Christ, you're kidding me. Okay? We have to learn it's okay to ask silly questions, because in that moment, it's not silly. Making mistakes, trying new ways of doing things. Innovation happens when people fall on their face, when they try something that hasn't been tried before. Now, I'm not talking about leaving the cabin door open on the plane to see what happens. That's probably not a great idea. I'm talking about small innovations that don't cost anybody anything but can change things. In bringing your best self to the table. Because if our workplaces have the very best version of every one of us there, that's a wholly different proposition to the majority of workplaces. Now, this is really important. There is no neutrality in psychological safety. There's no Ireland, there's no Switzerland. You're either on one side or the other. You either bring psychological safety into the room by the way you show up, or you take it out. And if you stay quiet and be neutral, you're taking it out because you're feeding that sense in the other person who is responding emotionally that, oh, I'm being judged. So this is a decision, this is an intention that we have to set. You either bring psychological safety into the room or you take it out. I don't know what would have happened if my colleagues had said, hey guy, tone down the jokes, that's not really fair. Or give the guy a break. Or yeah, it was a bit of a dumbass question, but it was made in the right terms. But what I ask you to ask yourself is, first off, you, not your organization. Do you make people feel psychologically safe? That's really important. And then there's your organization. And you can't really actually do it from the top down. The revolution starts from the bottom up. It starts with everybody setting an intention. I want to make the people around me feel safe to bring the real them into the room. Now, the very best way of making an organization psychologically safe is calling Genos International and asking them how to do that. No, I'm only kidding. Well, I'm only half kidding. It actually is the best way. But let me give you the second best way of doing that. I'm going to give you 5 simple tips. 5 very, very simple tips. Now, simple doesn't mean easy. They're uncomplicated, but they take a while to assimilate. Actually, let me try something. I saw somebody doing this on a movie on the way over. Just fold your arms like that. Okay? Now, some of you, like me, you have the right hand over the left arm. Just notice. And the left hand down here. Now, change it around so it's the other way around. Can you? It's not easy, is it? Look. It's like the night fever reunion over here. It's very difficult. And you know, it's actually not difficult to do, but you have rehearsed that move millions of times in your life. And now it's habitual and you don't think about it. The way you show up right now, you've rehearsed it millions of times in your life. And it may not be serving you well. So let me give you 5 tips that will help you immediately be more psychologically safe for the people around you. So the first one is be a don't knower. There's something in all of our cultures that we never like to admit, I don't know. And isn't that particularly true? Just give me a nod of the head if I'm right. Isn't that particularly true if you're the boss? You don't want to say, yeah, what do you think of that? I have no idea. It kind of feels weak. But actually it's not. It's strong. It's the strong choice. Because when you say, you know, I don't know, what do you think? The moment you say I don't know, particularly if you're in a place of authority, you give permission to everybody else to do it. And because if you are the boss or you're the team leader or you're just a senior member of the team, you have much more influence. All of the research shows you much more influence than an ordinary member of the team. So you can change things much more quickly simply by modeling that. So be a don't knower. If you don't know, just say, actually, no, I don't have a freaking clue. Where's Google? Or anybody else, any ideas? Second thing is, and this is really important, we do this all the time in meetings. We say, what does anybody think? And because we have this agenda in our minds, we ask for their opinion, they give it, and we move on really, really quickly without really hearing it. And sometimes we do that fake listening thing. You know that fake listening thing? So what you mean is we should do this and this and this. The brain is not engaged. It's just this habitual thing of let's repeat it back to her and she'll think I'm actually listening and give it down. It actually has to be, what do you really think? And then listen and be seen to listen and involve that person. And particularly if they ask a quote unquote silly question, congratulate them for taking the risk. And if you're in charge, take the risk yourself. Third one, intentionally screw up. I don't mean intentionally screw up in the sense, let's go back to the office and find something I could screw. Okay? But what I mean is when you find that the wheels are coming off something and it's falling apart, don't go covering your ass. Just say, oh, geez, you know what? You'll never know. You'll never guess what I just did. Oh, geez, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, my God. And particularly do that in front of the people whom you know, and you do know them. In a group, you know the people who feel psychologically unsafe. Drop the ball in front of them. Let it go wrong. Let the wheels come off. And then, most importantly, encourage them to do the same. But there's a critical part in this. As I say, this kind of implies, and I'm keeping it simple here today, this kind of implies that you've already decided what are acceptable risks. As I say, if you're on an airliner, leaving the back door open to see if it keeps down at the cost of air conditioning, that's not an acceptable risk. Okay? But there are small things, always things you can do that are acceptable risks. So you agree, what are the holy cows, the ones I cannot do, and what are the ones that I can do? And then when somebody fails and you want them to fail, one, celebrate. Good on you. Good for you that you gave it a go. And then, oh, I've lost it. And there's a critical thing. What do we learn? So there was an expression a few years ago, fail forward. It was a little bit corny and it was around for a long time, but it's about failing forward. It's about encouraging people to bring their real best self into the room and celebrating it when they're human. To be human is to screw up. Celebrating the screw up. Why should you care? Why should you care about this topic? Because, really simply, it touches everything. You think about what we've spoken about. Think about the person who makes you psychologically unsafe. What impact do they have on your sense of well-being, your ability to share, the sense of inclusion, the impact, the likely impact of turnover, the performance of the team, and your adaptability. They have an enormous impact upon you. So make the people around you feel psychologically safe. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We came so far. We came so far. Just imagine 20 years, 15, 20 years ago, speaking about